Hi again, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on how to live with I would call them on-prem Dynamics AX solutions while planning your migration or while considering migration to Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management. So I'm going to start with myself. So my name is Paulius Berzgys. I'm coming from a company that's called One Click Factory. And at One Click Factory, my title is I'm leading Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management developer, but generally I have a long experience working with F&O, with Dynamics AX, and also with upgrading customer solutions to Dynamics 365. So today, I'm willing to share some of that knowledge, some of that experience on one very particular topic that I hope you will find useful. So let's have a look at what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we're going to have a quick introduction about One Click Factory. So for the participants who don't know us yet, we'll share a bit what kind of company we are and where we are coming from, and then I'm gonna go straight to the main topic. So first of all, I'm gonna give an overview why it's still important to code Microsoft Dynamics AX on-prem versions. And generally, how you can code them to be more Dynamics 365 migration friendly. And then I'm going to deep dive into separate sections. So first of all, I'll talk about how to build Dynamics 365 friendly or compatible code in on-prem versions. Then I'm going to talk about how to design integrations, basically, or how to redesign existing integrations that they could be Dynamics 365 friendly. Then I'm going to talk about how to build future-proof user interface elements on-prem AX versions. So forms and reports, basically how to build them as migration-friendly as they can be. And the last one will be how to get the data ready. So how to get your existing data in your existing live ERP ready for migration, so it can go to Dynamics 365 as smoothly as possible. So these are the main topics that I'm going to cover today. At the end of the session, I'll give some time for the Q&A session. So you can already potentially type those questions already in chat window, and I'll address them after my presentation. So let's get started with the first topic. So a few words about One Click Factory. So we are basically a Microsoft Dynamics expertise center. So we work directly only to partners. We don't work with Dynamics customers. We only work through partners. We have Dynamics AX or Finance and Supply Chain Management, and Dynamics NAV or Business Central, and also .NET competencies. Our key areas are upgrades. So we help our partners to upgrade their customer solutions to the latest and greatest versions. We also have an extensive experience on developing solutions. So developing ISV solutions and developing end customer solutions in various different kinds of scenarios. We are also ISV development center. So what that means? That means that we are a bit closer to Microsoft, and we have access to the latest technologies and the latest news that Microsoft is providing, and we can share that with our partners to keep our partners also up to date. These are a few things about One Click Factory that you should know, and I won't get into much details right now. Next, so let's jump to the main topic. Why building Dynamics 365 friendly solutions is still relevant in the current world on Dynamics AX. So why developing AX is still relevant? Well, you would be surprised, but there are still many customers who are on AX 2009, AX 2012, or even older versions. So overall, out of the existing AX customer base, which is expected to be around 8,000 customers, we still have knowledge that it's only about 1,500 to 2,000 customers who are on Dynamics 365. So the rest of the customers are still on the on-prem versions. And so those customers who are, let's say, willing to migrate to Dynamics 365, they have to realize one thing. Migration to Dynamics 365 will be a lengthy process. So it might be so that in that process, while the migration is being considered, planned, budgeted, or even executed, you will have to do customizations to your existing system. So you will have to do some changes. Maybe change requests, maybe support requests to customize the system, to modify the system. So you will have to do them to your existing solutions. And then if you want to build them, then you might consider Dynamics 365 migration in the future and build them as friendly to Dynamics 365 basically as you can. What can be built with Dynamics 365 in mind? So I have split this webinar basically in 4 major sections. So we can build code to be more friendly with Dynamics 365. We can build integrations to be more friendly with Dynamics 365. We can build user interface elements, status forms and reports. And also we can do something about the existing data already to make it as migration compatible as it is possible on the current system. First of all, we're going to dive into first one. So we're going to dive into how to build code that could be as compatible already on the on-prem versions of Dynamics 365 as possible. So first, some background why actually the code cannot be compatible. So as you might know, on Dynamics 365, Microsoft has completely changed the way we are building customizations. And that means that basically most of the customizations that are currently done on your on-prem Dynamics AX solution have to be manually, refactored on extensions. So on AX 2009, I'll just generalize. On AX on-prem solutions, you were building code with technique that was called overlayering. With Dynamics 365, you're building on extensions. What that means, so that means that on the upgrade process, you will have to basically manually lift up all of the code pieces and move them into extensions. So that's the general challenge with migrating the code. So how you can build your code to be as friendly to Dynamics 365 as possible. So first of all, the general rule is to avoid intrusive customizations. Now, what are these intrusive customizations, you might ask? Well, intrusive customizations are generally changing type definitions in multiple places. So first and the most common example is changing types in method signatures in X++ code, changing types in access modifiers. So basically, you might be changing method instead of private, you make it public, X++ method. And also, you might be changing interfaces and maps. So all of that is a big no-no when you want to migrate code to Dynamics 365, because these type of changes are just, first of all, they're not compatible. Second of all, it's really hard to work around these type of code patterns to achieve the similar result in Dynamics 365. So while building customizations, you might think how to achieve this in a different way by not doing the intrusive customization. Second rule is don't break encapsulation. So again, this relates to access modifiers. So if there's a method that is right now private, probably it's a good reason why Microsoft made it private. It probably shouldn't be touched. If you want to touch it, probably then better to do modifications somewhere else. Potentially, you will have to write more code, but that code will be then more friendly to Dynamics 365, because in Dynamics 365, you won't be able to modify that private method anyways. And just general rule of thumb when thinking about customizing existing implementations, be additive versus be intrusive. That means whenever you customize, don't overwrite standard code. Add your code as extra puzzle pieces. So these are some general guidances on the code. Now, to get into more detail, how to build these modifications. So on the coding side, so I have a good advice, the one that we are applying ourselves when we do now AX 2012 implementations, customizations. So build, copy, paste, ready code. That's what we call it. I have a sample here, which is basically the idea behind the sample is that you can use something that we call fake event handlers. So in Dynamics 365, you will be relying on extensions on the standard code or chain of command. You can achieve something similar already in Dynamics AX with using like fake methods, as we call them. So you can create a fake method, as I have in this sample, and then have all of your logic in that fake method. In Dynamics 365, it really will be easy just to copy the code from your fake handler into the real event handler, and you're good to go. Another note, basically, yes, so avoid intrusive changes. Do not change method signatures or inline conditional statements. So try to not change if, while, for statements in X++ code. Why? Again, it's going to be same story. You will not be able to move that code. You'll have to do a difficult workaround. So it might be so that you will have to write more code, but it's worthwhile investment because then the code will be easy to move to Dynamics 365. And the last note, in case you need extra parameter for some method, it is possible, instead of modifying method signature, because that's wildly popular. I've done more than 100 assessments, so I've seen that in many places. Don't do that. Add parameter methods, so add parameter methods instead of modifying method signature, and that will allow to pass parameter in a, let's say, friendly way without needing to change the standard code. So these are my bits, my few bits on the X++ code. Next is table modifications. So on table modifications, again, a few bits and pieces here. The biggest mistakes that I've seen, or the biggest, let's say, conflicts, I wouldn't call mistakes, right? They're working modifications. So the biggest conflicts with Dynamics 365 on tables are developers usually change extended data types on standard tables. Developers add extra values to enumerations, or developers change standard table indexes, or intrusively customize table methods. So these are big do nots when you build the AX customizations. And well, if these are do nots, then what you should do. So first of all, for your types, you might want to create new extended data types instead of changing data types on the standard fields, or changing standard data types. On the enumerations, this is risky one. So enumerations generally are not extensible. There is a specific list of Microsoft published that are extensible. So you might want to check that your enumeration is really extensible when you are doing the mod. So these are published and available publicly, and Microsoft's constantly updating the list. For the table indexes, so if you want to do a performance improvement, or you want to change the key of a table, do not modify standard index. That's a very intrusive customization. So instead of that, just create a new index and you're good. And on the code side, so yeah, I have noted that do not build intrusive code. So the same as X++ code, on tables, we also have X++ code. Keep in mind these notes when you also are customizing methods on tables. That will save you significant effort moving to Dynamics 365. So that was the bit on the tables. Another thing that I usually see in existing Dynamics implementations is we call basically there are lots of fake changes in customer code bases. So I have done more than 100 assessments for the AX customers, and yeah, it's in almost every implementation I see this. So another advice comes from this: clean up X++ code. There's a major issue that the KB hotfixes, basically, cumulative updates from Microsoft, they are imported in an application because, yes, somebody wanted some fix. and they are not merged properly into your customization layer. And I have a screenshot right here on the screen with a perfect example of it. So in a zip layer, in the blue color, we see that there's some extra piece of code that's Russia specific, most likely because of the naming. But anyways, that code was not merged into the cust layer, and that results in basically when we do the code analysis, and when you're going to do code analysis, and when you're going to be migrating code, the tools will indicate that this is a change, even though it's not really a change. It's just that it's basically a fake change. It's just a not properly sorted code merge conflict. So my advice, if you're considering on migrating code to Dynamics 365, solve these already. Most likely, these are usually some localization stuff like India localization, Brazil localization, Russia localization, and usually for the localizations that are not used by the company. So you're quite safe on merging them into your code. But anyway, yeah, it's a nice little homework you can do to make the migration and make the transition easier to Dynamics 365. Yeah, and that was the last tip that I had on X++ coding. So yeah, we talked about, just to recap, so we talked about the X++ code, and yeah, the general idea is try to be additive, try to add those fake event handlers in X++ code. On the tables, again, try to be additive, don't customize standard indexes, don't customize types, create your own types, create your own indexes. That's the whole idea behind being additive. And yeah, clean up the code. That will save you a massive amount of effort when you're going to be doing the actual code migration. So these are my few bits on the X++ code. Next topic I have is integration. So how to design Dynamics 365 friendly or compatible integrations on your existing ERP system. That is either Microsoft Dynamics CX 2009 or 2012 or even older versions. So first of all, what are the problems with integrations? Why integrations? Why your existing integrations cannot be lifted to Dynamics 365 and cannot be compatible? So there are two main reasons. First reason is cloud. So there are integration patterns that are not compatible with cloud. Some of these integration patterns are direct database, or as I have written in the slides, direct SQL integration. So whenever something happens directly with database, it's a good indication that it will not be compatible in the cloud world. Second piece of incompatible integrations is file-based integrations. So again, these are not compatible because they were probably reaching some file that was on-prem, and now that file cannot be in cloud for some reason, so it had been somewhere else, but generally the code is not compatible. So these are the cloud incompatible integrations. There's also second chunk of integrations that are not compatible because they rely on something that's not available in Dynamics 365 anymore. So, or in other words, they are relying on deprecated technologies. So these are, first of all, AF document service-based integrations. They were wildly popular with the AX 2012 implementations. There's also DXF, or Data Import-Export Framework, related file-based integrations in AX12. And also in AX12 and in AX 2009, it was also quite popular. So Excel files were, well, a king. So there were quite frequently, integrations that were built using COM objects or sysexcel API to import Excel or to export Excel to some specific template. The problem with those is these were basically opening Excel application in the background. And in a cloud, that's not really an option anymore. So these have been completely deprecated. So this is general reasons what's the problem with integrations and why the integrations cannot be compatible on Dynamics 365 world. So yeah, how to build compatible integrations. So first of all, API integrations. How to build Dynamics 365 compatible with API integrations. So if you are on AX 2012, you better not use AF document services. So the document services are deprecated in Dynamics 365, and they will require heavy redesign if you want to lift those integrations, because basically there's no identical alternative, and the middleware that is working for that integration in AX 2012 will have to be completely reconfigured to integrate with Dynamics 365. So if you have to build integration right now in AX 2012, that has to be API integration. You have custom AF services. Custom AF services are still perfectly fine with Dynamics 365. They are supported, and basically they can be lifted as is, so copy-paste as is. And in most integration scenarios, custom AF services, generally they are better. They require more time to build, that's for sure. But other than that, they are usually faster to work because they don't have the whole massive framework behind them. So they are better performing. They are usually straight to the point. And they are still compatible with Dynamics 365. So that's about the API integrations. Now, what about file-based integrations? So on file-based integrations, as I mentioned, there are a few limitations here and there. So first of all, regards Excel API. So don't use legacy Excel API on the existing integrations that you're going to build. Why? Well, because it's not going to work anymore. Also, don't use AF document services in AX 2012, and don't use those inbound XSLX transformations. Again, you're gonna have to throw that away and redesign it completely from scratch in Dynamics 365. And also try not to rely too much on the XF. The XF, you can use the XF, that's fine. But these customizations that you will build on the XF, they will be not compatible in any shape or form with Dynamics 365. So instead of doing that, what to do? So first of all, regards Excel or XML, try to build custom X++ code using XML or .io APIs. So there are APIs that are very much still working and supported. So there is there's the XML reading mechanisms that are available in AX 2012. So instead of doing AF document services, just do the custom X++ code. And instead of Excel, use CSV and .io. That's way more friendly, way more performant. And CSV is generally, no matter how old it is, it's quite future-proof. For the recurring imports, try to limit usage of Windows API and local file storage. If you can, ideally, use Azure Blob Storage already. So if you can, use Azure Blob Storage API and store files in Azure Blob Storage. The storage generally, it's cheap. There's APIs already available in AX 2012. You just basically need to import some .NET references or some .NET DLLs. And you're quite good to use it. And then, you can completely just copy-paste this code to Dynamics 365 and have a cloud-friendly integration. So these are my few bits on the integrations and a few bits on how to build file-based integrations that could be friendly to Dynamics 365. Yes, generally, integrations, of course, are quite sensitive topic, and generally, if you have the integrations already running, you probably will not be rebuilding the existing ones. But at least when you build new ones on the AX on-prem versions, keep those tips in mind, and try to build them as friendly as possible to Dynamics 365. So if the migration is somewhere on the roadmap already. So that was my few bits on the integrations. And next, we're going to move to user interface elements. So how to build future-proof user interface elements on your Dynamics AX on-premises solution. Again, I'm going to start with the same pattern as I did before. So first of all, why it's relevant and what are the problems that are usually faced when upgrading solutions to Dynamics 365? What are the common problems with the user interface elements? So first of all, Dynamics 365 is enforcing specific form patterns. So Dynamics 365 has a very strict user interface guidelines. And while AX on-prem versions also have written guidelines, now they are enforcing them. So your forms will not work if they don't adhere to some design pattern. Second of all, there's limited features for extensibility. So there's really limited things you can do on standard forms, at least from the AOT itself. And the third about the reports. So reports cannot be customized or in Dynamics 365. So the standard report designs cannot be customized. So these limitations are usually the ones that we see are really impacting those migrations from AX on-premises versions. And so how to avoid these? So first of all, about the forms. So how to build Dynamics 365 compatible forms? Well, when building forms, try not to create completely custom form designs for new forms. So I know developers or even business key users who are requiring for that are usually quite creative. So they wanna have a form in their own way, that the way that they would see, the form would best match their needs. That might be fine. However, already in AX 2009 and AX 2012, there are guidelines how user interface should look like. And those guidelines are also taking efficiency in mind. So it would be probably a good idea to follow these design guidelines and follow the existing design patterns and not try to reinvent the bicycle, but basically follow the existing code patterns, follow the existing design patterns, and have the forms as standard looking as possible. Second tip is, second mistake or second challenge is rearranging standard form designs. Again, this usually comes from the user requirement that user doesn't like where the standard controls are. Yeah, maybe the shipping address is in the wrong place. Again, this is not really friendly Dynamics 365, so you will have to get rid of this customization, unfortunately, in one way or another. So when you do these kind of changes, try to avoid them. I mean, try to don't do that if you get these kinds of requirements, and try to defend it. I mean, yeah, this is a system, this perfectly fine system. So there's a reason why this field is here and there. So yeah, probably you should try to avoid it as much as possible. And the third one is when you do form modifications, usually you will be doing those form modifications and design elements via AOT. So whenever you need to hide something or make it bigger, you're just going to go to properties and set the property. That's a bit of a problem when migrating to Dynamics 365 because you cannot really do that in Dynamics 365 anymore. You can change properties, some on the extensions. However, it's quite limited. So what you can already do in AX 2012 or AX 2009 to make it more upgrade friendly is you can change these form design element properties from X++ code. So, you can change everything from code in the form design. You can change the looks of the controls, the position of the controls, and so on. So to make these design changes compatible with Dynamics 365, because you can do these design changes in code, and then basically you can just copy this code over Dynamics 365 and have it perfectly running. So in Dynamics 365, that's how we usually do design changes, unfortunately. We do that in code because that's how it's possible from the technological side. So these are my few bits on the forms. Next topic is reports. So how to build a Dynamics 365 compatible report. So what not to do? So first of all, don't customize standard report designs. So this applies more to X2012 customers. Don't customize, if you want to have an invoice, don't customize the standard sales invoice. If you want a custom layout, that's perfectly fine. Of course you want, because every company wants their own sales invoice layout. So just copy the standard design and make your changes there. Make your changes in the copy, and then set up print management to use your design instead of standard design. But try not to customize standard one. Why? Well, because in Dynamics 365, that's completely not allowed. So you're not allowed to change the standard designs anymore. You are allowed to introduce as many new designs as you wish. So it's perfectly fine. If you have your changes on the custom design, just copy that design directly to Dynamics 365, point print management to it, and use your old sales invoice on the new system. That's perfectly fine, and that's going to work. Another do not, which we sometimes see in X2012, is on X2012, we still had two technologies to build the reports. We still had the SRS reports, which was the new technology back in X2012. And also we had those Morphex reports, or basically X++ reports, which was a legacy from the previous AX versions. So sometimes we see that, and if you are running right now on X2012 and you have to build some reports, try to avoid using that Morphex reports, because we will not be able to, you will not be able to migrate that to Dynamics 365 in any way. Morphex reports are no longer supported in Dynamics 365. They are also somewhat obsolete in Dynamics AX12, but they were still allowed for some reasons. So these are my general notes on the reports and on the forms. So just to wrap it up, what I mentioned, so we talked about the forms. So on the forms, again, as usual, try to be additive. And if you want to change some design elements on forms, try to do that via X++ code instead of property change, because that will be completely extension-friendly, Dynamics 365-friendly customization. On the report side, try to build report customizations on custom designs. So if you need an invoice, just copy invoice layout and make your changes there on the copy, not on the standard one. So these are my general notes. These were my general notes on the user interface elements. And the last section today that I'm going to talk about is data. That's my favorite. So my personal favorite. So how to achieve data readiness in your current Dynamics AX system and make that data as friendly to Dynamics 365 as it's possible. So first of all, what are the main data migration challenges? So, well, the biggest data migration challenge is usually data inconsistency, so orphaned records. When you delete something, let's say, we usually see like customer groups or even customers, let's say customer records in the system, which have, well, customer group may be deleted. This is a rare occurrence, but we see some of those things happening from time to time in the systems, and that will cause issues in the migration to Dynamics 365 and even in other migrations, because, well, to migrate data has to be consistent. Second challenge is virtual entities. Virtual legal entities were widely popular in AX 2009 and 12. The reason for that is, well, it was an easy way to share data. However, this is something that's not supported anymore, and I'll talk about how I actually address this issue. Third is historical junk data. So again, to try to make the migration as smooth as possible and as quick as possible, and potentially to save disk space on cloud, you might want to get this database as small as possible. And usually in the on-prem world, nobody cared about database size, and these database sizes are usually quite massive. So that's a third issue that I have here. There's usually lots of junk data, which you can get rid of already on your system. And basically, I already have a healthier system today, but also have a system that will be easier to migrate. And the last issue is a quite common one, unsupported database collation. I'll talk a bit about that issue in a separate slide. So yeah, first of all, data consistency. How to improve data consistency on your existing system. On X2009, data was usually wildly inconsistent because X2009 had not enough validations in itself to basically to not allow something to be deleted. So if you want to check your data consistency in X2009, there's a good tool for that. So there's the upgrade checklist validation, basically. So there's the X2012 upgrade checklist. You can import it in X2009. And you can run the data validation steps. They will basically go through the main tables and validate whether your data is actually consistent or not. Common issues are dimensions, missing dimension records, missing group records, and things like that with the X2009 data, which then, it hinders the data consistency. And yeah, it will not allow to migrate data any further than that. In X2012, there's no such good tool. So if you want to check data consistency in X2012, there's a good chance that your data is more consistent than X2012 from my experience. But still, if you want to check some particular ones, usually just build some simple SQL scripts. Checking the customer groups, checking dimension records, just build simple SQL scripts, run some SQL scripts, joins, not exist joins, and see do you actually have orphan records or not. There are no tools from Microsoft available to verify that. But again, you will see those inconsistency errors when you finally be doing the migration. About data cleanups. So that's the next topic, about the data cleanups. So as I mentioned, when I do the analysis, I usually see that a large chunk of the existing on-prem database is taken by something that's not really relevant even for the current implementation. And specifically, that's something that's not really relevant to be migrated to Dynamics 365. So what you can already clean up. So first of all, cleaning up batch job history is probably number one. You generally don't need batch job history for more than 1 month or even more than a few weeks. Maybe for the few weeks you might want to do some investigation if something went wrong with production. But apart from that, you usually don't need that. Second one is AF integration logs. This is a big one for X2012. It usually takes a ridiculous amount of space in the database. Why you want to keep it? Well, because again, if something went wrong with integration, you want to see why and where it went wrong. However, you probably don't need that for more than a month or two. And usually I see years of data in AF integration logs. So make sure that you are cleaning these up periodically and keeping the database size small on these logs. Again, and then we have other kinds of logs. So email logs, database logs are quite popular ones. They are usually cleaned up, same as with batch job and integration logs. But yeah, they are a good candidate basically to clean up, and they are good candidates also to eat up your database space. So keep an eye on these. Another one, which is harder to recommend, and this is not popular one, but also what you can delete from the existing system is source documents that are posted. So for example, purchase orders, sales orders. You already have the ones that you have posted, you have sales order that's already invoiced. So you have an invoice. Why you need the original document? You have all of the information in the invoice. Same goes for purchase order. You already have the receipt. You already have received all of the goods that you need. So the system doesn't need a purchase order anymore. System allows you to delete it freely. It's only, if you need to handle something like returns, maybe, that's why you might need that. But again, how many returns are you handling? That's another question. But generally, these kind of data, it can be deleted. And what you're gonna achieve from this? Well, you're gonna achieve faster system already in AX 2012 or AX 2009 that you're running. So yeah, some general notes why you should clean up. So first of all, you're gonna have better performance for your existing system. Then you will reduce the downtime needed for the data migration. So the more of the data you need to push to the cloud, the longer the cutover has to be. So you might wanna try to reduce the amount of data that you migrate to make this cutover as short as possible. And with that also, there comes the third reason. So reduce cloud costs for Dynamics 365 implementation. Why I have that on a slide? Well, because Microsoft, by definition, they have some quotas for data that you can have in Dynamics 365 Cloud. And if you exceed those, you will be charged extra for the database storage, and the charges are quite steep. So generally, quotas are quite fine, but really you want to keep only you only want to bring the relevant data to Dynamics 365 world. And I think on this slide, I have a poll for you just to keep these things a bit more interactive. So how are you doing your data hygiene? Are you doing any actions to make your data on your existing AX cleaner and nicer and the system faster? Okay, I think we have some technical issues on the poll, so the poll will not pop up. Sorry for that. Anyway, but we can discuss later in the chat this question. So moving on to the last issue that I have on my slide. Okay, now we have the poll. So yeah. So what kind of data hygiene routines are you currently executing with your customers? So are you not cleaning up anything? Are you cleaning up logs only, or are you cleaning up order history also? So yeah, let me know your answers. I'll review them in a minute. Okay, so I have majority of the participants who actually said that, yep, they are cleaning up logs only. But that's a good practice, right? So cleaning up logs, that's a nice way to keep the database. Relatively smaller than it can be, and logs are usually taking ridiculous amount of space in the implementations that I've seen. They are not cleaned up at all. Some of you said that you're not cleaning up anything. Well, you might want to have a look at those logs then and clean them up. Okay, so thanks for the input on that one. And yeah, back to the topic. So one of the last issues with the Dynamics 365 data migration is database collation conflict. What is this conflict about? Well, in Dynamics AX, you basically were allowed to have any database collation you wish. Your database was on your on-premises SQL servers, so you could have any kind of collation you want. Well, in Dynamics 365, that's not allowed anymore. Microsoft is hosting your database. That means it is only one collation that is supported. Microsoft basically is not messing with whatever collations you had and only allowing one collation. Where does the problem come from? Well, if you're going to be migrating database, to Dynamics 365, you are essentially migrating the same on-prem database. You are converting into cloud format, but under the hood is the same data and the same encryption of data that's being pushed to cloud. What that means? That means that you also are carrying over the collation. So it's a conflict because you will actually get successful data migration, but you will get the collation conflicts later on popping up when you do updates or when you do some database synchronization. So it's a really nasty issue, and usually it's too late when you realize that you have a conflict. Now, what you can do about it already right now is you can mitigate this database collation conflict already in your live dynamic system. So you can change the collation on your existing system to have it, let's say, migration ready and migration compatible to Dynamics 365. I have written a blog post with detailed instructions and with the description of the issue, so that you can find it on One Click Factory website. The blog post was released last summer, so summer actually 2020. And I have also included the link here in the slide deck for that blog post. Again, just to clarify, this issue only applies when you're going to be doing data upgrade, or basically big bang data approach. If you're going to do custom data migration with the data templates, that's perfectly fine. There's not an issue, because then you're not really pushing the database to Dynamics 365. You are just importing the data from templates, and that doesn't affect database in any way or form. So yeah, for more info, if you feel this issue will be relevant, please refer to my blog post, and I have actually the scripts and the solutions and the screenshots, everything quite well described how to fix this issue already in your existing system. So hey, that was the last topic that I had to talk about, that I had planned to talk about today. So data, and just to recap, yeah, so there are a few things that you can do about your data. Make the data consistent, make the database as clean as possible, and yeah, solve that little collation conflict before it hits you in the actual migration. So these are the main topics that I had. These are the main topics that I had planned to talk about today. If you're gonna need any help on the migrations themselves, I'm happy to say that One Click Factory can help you migrating your AX solutions to Dynamics 365. Why you should trust us with the upgrade? First of all, we value our partnership, so we really will go out of our way to get that project successful. Second of all, we implement the latest Microsoft technology, so we are always up to date with what's available in Dynamics 365. And also, we have quite a track record already with upgrading customers. So this gives us, a sixth sense. Basically, we can sense in an early phase that something's going wrong, and we can sense these risks and help you to tackle those risks in the early stages, or even, of course, in the late stages of the project. And yeah, just to recap how we can help you on the migration. So we can help you on the migration basically in 3 different areas. So first of all, we can help you to define the migration strategy. So we have a best path assessment for that, where we analyze your existing AX solution, and we can help you to understand what would be the best way to migrate it. We also have the upgrade service, where we can help you to execute the migration to cloud. So we can help you in different areas, like developing the solution, upgrading the solution, upgrading integrations, upgrading data. And when you have the solution already on the cloud, we can also help you with the solution maintenance. So those updates that you need to address with Dynamics 365, we also have a service for that. We have a dedicated team who can run these updates, test the system, and make sure that it's perfectly fine after you apply Microsoft updates. So that's all I had to say. Yeah, if you need any help on the upgrades, we request our services at oneclickfactory.com, or you can always contact our local One-Click Factory office to request a consultation with our Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain management specialist. And just some material after this webinar. So you can download a free ebook which describes how to migrate to Dynamics 365 and how One-Click Factory tackles these kind of migrations. So the ebook is called 3-Step Approach, How to Upgrade Successfully and Stay Updated. We also have a free checklist, things to do when preparing for upgrade, and we also have a free checklist, situations when being on the Dynamics AX becomes an issue. So again, please make sure, check these ones and see the useful information that you get it from here. On this topic that we have today, I will also be releasing a blog post, hopefully sometime in October or November. So this topic that we've discussed today will be in a more detail with more screenshots and more descriptions will also be available in the blog post. So make sure you stay tuned and check that blog post. Releasing sometime in October or November. Okay, I see no more questions, so maybe you haven't lasted till the end. So, dear participants, thank you for taking part. I hope you find this information useful. So stay tuned for the blog post coming up on the same topic and with more details into this topic. And hey, thank you for taking part. And yeah, have a good one. Stay safe and see you hopefully someday on Dynamics 365.